Welcome back. I wanted to do a quick episode just about trusting the Lord to provide for your birth. And I hear a lot of stories about women really wanting a home birth, but they just can't afford it. And I just wanted to speak to that a little bit and just share some testimony of how God has provided for me, and also a little more knowledge and insight that I've come to find out since having my last baby. So, number one, giving birth is free. You don't need anyone with you. You can literally just have a baby at home. And that might sound radical to you, but it's true. And if you feel any desire for that, let me just encourage you that there's women all over the world who are trusting the Lord and giving birth with just their husbands. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. And I feel like there's not a lot of Christian content out there about this, and a lot of it is very new age. And obviously, a lot of that is coming to the light as very demonic. And I'm just wanting to be a voice out there who can remind you that we were literally made to give birth, and it goes best when it's left undisturbed, and you can totally just do it alone at your home with your husband. Now, if that is something that you don't feel peace with, there is another option where you can find someone who can come and support you, who is not a midwife or a medical provider, but who is willing to just be with you and help you to know if there is a major emergency, and help you to maybe identify what some of those would be and to support you in your pregnancy. And that is something that um, I think if you have a wise woman in your community who would be willing to come to your birth, not as a midwife, but as a friend and as just someone who is wise, a wise woman, that's an option. Another option is to find an unlicensed provider, which is what I did during my first home birth, and I would highly recommend that to anyone also. Um, this is someone who does not have a medical license with the system and who can 100% serve clients without having to follow any rules. And so, in the state that I live in, it's now regulated. Midwifery is very regulated, but it's also, once you get a license, there's not as many restrictions. So you can still attend breech, you can still attend VBACs at home, you can still attend twin births as a licensed provider. The only restriction is type 1 diabetics. And yeah, so that would be another option, is an unlicensed provider, or you can look into licensed midwifery, which a lot of the times this is something where things get kind of sticky because it's hard to tell in some situations if these providers are going to be able to fully serve women in what they're wanting, while still also being under the rules of the system. So I always feel like this is where things get really tricky because they are under the rules and regulations of the state. And it's kind of the same thing as a hospital where like there's policy and you just have to follow it or you're going to get in trouble. And so they can only serve women up until the point, like up until 42 weeks, then you can have a home birth. Otherwise, if you hit 42 weeks, I can no longer serve you. Or, in states where breech birth is illegal or attending a breech birth would be illegal. Also, let me just say it's not illegal in any state to just stay home and have your baby. So just know that you cannot get in trouble. When I say it's illegal, I'm saying it would be illegal for that person to attend your birth as a medical provider. So they could get in trouble. You're not going to get in trouble. But it's their license that they have to follow these rules. So knowing that if you're inviting someone into your birth space who's licensed, it's really important to vet them with questions like, what would you do if my baby was breech? What would you do if I go over 42 weeks? What would you do if you found out I was having twins? What would you do if my blood pressure started to be elevated? What would you do if I wanted to refuse some kind of test? These are all questions that can kind of help you understand what kind of midwife you're working with. And some women really do want a licensed provider. Sorry, I'm holding my baby. But anyways, these are all just some things that I feel like is helpful when you're thinking about having a home birth. So just know not all home births are the same. And if you're feeling like you can't afford a home birth, just know they are free. Home birth is free. You have a body with a baby in your uterus right now if you're pregnant. Um, and that baby will come out and that will not cost you any money unless you invite someone to charge you to attend your birth. So that is like the number one thing I want to tell you is that birth is free. But if you're wanting a provider and you and your husband are butting heads and you're not feeling like you can afford it, can I just share with you what happened with my baby? So, with my firstborn, or with my first home birth, she was my second born, but technically third because we miscarried between the first and second live birth, baby. Um, we found a very affordable provider that we felt so peaceful about having. And we knew we were going to have a home birth. Like we knew that we knew that we knew that we did not want to go back to the hospital, but we had no idea how we were going to afford to pay for that birth. And very, very long story short, it was getting to the third trimester. Our money was really, really tight, and we didn't have any extra money in savings that we could pull from. And my work was kind of slowing down at the time, and my husband's work was actually going really well. It just we didn't have a ton of extra. Um, so essentially, my midwife was due this money, and we had no idea how we were going to do it. And miraculously, we had our my father-in-law hit two deer with my car, my van, and we received an insurance check. We bought the van back, and we received an insurance check for almost the exact amount that we needed to pay my midwife. So this was like literally the biggest relief because I just was like, I don't know how we're going to pay for this home birth. And then it was like miraculously two deer plus my van equals insurance check that will cover the rest of my home birth. And so that was just like so confirming to me of like God telling me like I want you to have this home birth and I'm going to take care of you. And so what I want to encourage you with is that if you're feeling led to have a home birth and you don't know how you're going to afford that, number one, obviously sell stuff on Marketplace, like increase your income, do odd jobs on the side, all the basic things of like come up with as much money as you can. The next thing I would say is like present your request to God and pray and ask him, do you want me to have a home birth? Yes or no? And do not allow finances to be a part of your decision making because he will make a way. If you're supposed to have a midwife, he will make a way for you to have that midwife. If you are supposed to have a home birth without a midwife and you're supposed to have someone coming and just serving you and holding your hand while you have a baby, pray for him to bring that person into your life. I think that women deserve to have support. And obviously, that's like the bare minimum. Women deserve women who love them in their birth spaces, which no one is having women who love them in their birth spaces. Feels like everyone's inviting strangers in, and things are not going well because, yeah, anyways, whole nother story. But the next thing that I would say is that you don't need anyone there and you can just do it alone or with your husband. And so there's a lot of different options. But like I said, if you are going to be hiring a medical provider who is licensed, it's important to ask the questions of what would you do in this case? What would you do in that case? Do you carry Pitocin and when do you administer it? And that one is a big one for me because I'm just very anti-Pitocin. And so ask them, are you comfortable not bringing Pitocin? What do you think about mother-led resuscitation? What do you think about not bringing an ambu bag? Asking your provider, some of these questions will let you see how comfortable they are with birth. Ask them what they think of free birth. that will be helpful. That will be very helpful because if they are not comfortable with the idea of you just giving birth without them, then they're already coming into it with this desire to save you, which is not good. Because if you're hiring a midwife, especially one who's licensed, the the reason you're hiring them in most situations is because you want them to do something. And so hiring someone to do a job and then asking them not to do that job is kind of like doesn't really make any sense. So these can also help you and your husband these questions of like, okay, what do we want a midwife for? Like what situations would that be beneficial? Um, what are our biggest fears in birth? What would we feel most peace about if we were to move forward with home birth? What is the reason why we would want a midwife to use her skills? What skills would we want her to use? When would we feel like a midwife isn't helpful enough and we might want to transfer? Um, these are all really important questions. So, another thing that I would highly recommend, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, is on a Joyful Births Instagram account under her bio, she has a link to her stand store and it involves the husband's role in birth course and or video. It's just a video that you can watch. And that was super helpful for me and my husband to just kind of like have more confidence of like, okay, I think we can do this. And truly just believing that when birth is left alone, most of the time it goes really well. And also educating yourself on what are the signs that something's going wrong. And then also really tuning into the Holy Spirit and allowing Him to show you what you're supposed to do with your pregnancy and your birth. So it's not about checking the right box of, okay, I shouldn't hire a licensed midwife and I should just do this. Don't make it about what you should do. Ask God, ask your husband, ask wise women in your community who they know and other ways that maybe you can do things to achieve your goal of a home birth. But also, um, maybe ask your midwife if she's open to bartering. Maybe you have a talent or a gift. If you are wanting to have a woman in your space, a midwife in your space, or even a birth keeper in your space, someone to just come who's not a medical provider and to just be with you, um, ask them if you could barter or trade services of any kind. Like maybe you have chickens and you want to like trade eggs instead of payment. Like maybe you have some kids' clothes or some furniture, or I don't know. Like maybe you have a talent or a gift that would really bless their family. Maybe you own cattle and you could trade them some meat. Like my midwife was very open to all of those things when I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay her before we got that check from insurance. So I share this all with you very openly and without any kind of pride, laying my pride down to share that we were really broke in that season. And some people say being broke is not a reason to have a free birth, but I would argue with that because I don't think being broke is a reason to enter the hospital system. And the last thing I'll say about this is that when I was trying to figure out with my first home birth if I was going to do a home birth or not, we didn't know how we were going to afford it. This is the birth, this is the baby I'm talking about where we had the insurance check with the deer come through. But we didn't know how we were going to afford it. And I was talking to a mom who had had two free births in a RV. Like she's very outside the system, doesn't even have internet on her phone. And I told her like, "Oh man, if I just go to the hospital, I would have a birth that was free. Like I wouldn't have to pay anything. And it seems silly to pay for a midwife and then not to get an epidural and not to get the free food and not to get the nurse's help and all this stuff." And she looked at me and she said something I will never forget. And this is the biggest piece of advice that I tell women when they talk about, "Oh, maybe I should go to the hospital just because it's going to be free." She looked at me and she said, "You're going to pay for it in other ways if you go to the hospital." And I just got chills even when I said that because I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear because I'm only looking at this from a financial standpoint, which a lot of the times husbands have a very financial mindset because they are the provider and they are the one who's going to be like taking care of this and they're a protector and our provider. So they're going to be the one that's like, oh, hold on, you don't want there to be any doctors, you don't want there to be any nurses, you want us to do this at home. Like, it's very big for a lot of men, especially with finances if you're trying to pay for a midwife, because a lot of the time insurance doesn't cover it, but sometimes it does. So also look into your insurance. But that's exactly what I needed to hear in order to feel peace about being able to find a way to make it work at home, because there is a price you pay when you enter the hospital. And not only is it disturbing physiological birth to leave your home, but it's also strangers in your space, and it's bright lights, and it's people coming in and out, and it's fingers inside of you, and it's people putting you on a time schedule, and it's changing your clothes into their clothes and laying on your back and having people ask you, are you sure you don't want the epidural? And having strangers coming in and out of your space and having them with your legs spread open, looking at your vagina when you're giving birth, their gloved hands being the first people to touch your baby, sometimes their mouths on your baby's mouth. It's induction before your baby was ready to be born. It's interference, it's disturbance, there's so many different things. And so for us, our decision was very clear. We want a home birth. We didn't know how we were going to pay for it. And the Lord provided for us to have a midwife. And then for the next baby, we were able to just do it ourselves at home. And we bought a birth pool. We bought a hose. We paid our water bill afterwards. It was it was much cheaper than a midwife, but I would pay every single penny again to have my midwife if I feel led to in the future. She's definitely worth it. But if it is about finances, just know your only option is not just the hospital. You can still just stay home without a midwife and without a provider. If you want more birth support with that, you can reach out to my friend Audrey at A Joyful Birth on Instagram that I mentioned. Please purchase the Home Birth on Your Own Terms book. Look up birth stories. Listen to podcasts about free birth. Listen to podcasts about all birth. Every situation you will learn from an elective C-section at 39 weeks, and you will learn from a free birth at home. And you will learn from stories including loss, and you will learn from stories including induction, and you will learn from stories including every single thing that people experience during birth. So anyways, wanted to share this with you. Hopefully it's helpful, and hopefully it will give you some things to think about. But thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.